Welcome, everybody. This is the State of the Association webcast for January 16th, 2018. I'm Jose Rivera, the CEO of CSIA, and today we're going to have two special attendees. One is Jeff Miller, the chair of the board of CSIA, and also John Weber, president of Software Toolbox, who will provide his input on the international front. So let's get started with an overview of the agenda that we have for today. We're going to go through a case for growth, global initiatives, best practice revision 5 and what we have in store. We have a few other updates, and then we'll talk, of course, about our 2018 executive conference. So Jeff Miller, can you take it from here? This is the case for growth, and this is Jeff Miller, the chair of CSIA.
Yes, I sure can. Thank you, Jose, and welcome to those that are attending today. We very much appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us. We, as a board and as a CSIA, we've been thinking through how do we really grow the organization and get to that next level. We grow some every year. We do have a growth trajectory, but we know there's a lot else that we can do. So one of the things that if we think about growth, when we look at scaling, it really allows our association to deliver better to our mission to advance the industry of control system integration. So, you know, we can do certain things with the size that we are today, but as we continue to scale, we're going to have more funds available to do more with that. But also growth continues to ensure that we are relevant in the marketplace, and that includes, you know, other system integrators, our vendors, end users, just a large number of people that are really our stakeholders for CSIA. And when we started looking at what are the sources for growth, this is kind of the way we classified them. So smaller SIs, we're going to look a little bit about what we would classify them in just a second. Smaller SIs, those are ones that will very much benefit from and probably have the most initial benefit from implementing best practices in their companies. But also looking at other automation type markets like robotics or building automation, or now with a lot of the work that we have to do in cybersecurity or their IT type organizations that also would benefit from CSIA. So again, one of our goals as a board or as the association was to be more inclusive, so that we do become the kind of the knowledge base of the place where people go to learn about systems integration. And then when we look at just this overall global SI community, how do we continue to leverage that? There isn't any other association in the world that's like CSIA, so how do we leverage that amongst our global partners as well as global SIs across the world? All right, go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. So if you look at these two pie charts, we have one that is based on annual revenue, and this is a cross section of our current members today, members of CSIA. So we would have 42% of our current members are the systems integrators that are less than 5 million in annual revenue. There's 26 that are in the 5 to 10 million. There's 18% that are in the 10 to 25, 9% in that next category, 25 to 50, and 6% that are above 50 million. So if you look at that, you can see that that's a lot. We have a lot of integrators that are in that smaller size, and obviously ones that we want to make sure we have value for so we can continue to grow the association. If you look at the chart to the right, you'll notice that 37% of those systems integrators have less than 25 employees. So in that less than 5 million revenue category, a lot of them are the less than 25. And I know from my experience when Interstates joined, CSIA, we were probably at that 25 to 30 employee range, and we implemented best practices within a year of joining. And now today we're at we've got 180 employees, but it's way different. The things that we look at from that perspective. So if you look at that pie chart, you'll see that a good chunk of us are 25 to 50, so maybe less than 50 members. We've got way more than half of our members are in that category. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And if you think about your business in particular, I know when I looked at it, when I went through this slide in particular, I thought about, how did Interstates get started? This is the way a lot of these less than 25s, and many of us got started. We had a smart engineer decides to start their own SI company. They sell this idea to potential recruits, maybe partners, people that want to join and invest in it. They set it up. They get started with operations. Everything's just really cool, and business is taken off. Although, as an engineer, you felt like, man, this management side is a lot harder than I thought it would be. And I'm not really enjoying that part. I really like the engineering, but I don't really enjoy the management side. And then at some point you reach a plateau, and you're very busy. You're kind of wishing you could grow more because you'd like to add some more staff, but yet you're kind of stuck in a rut. How do I get past that? So that's where a lot of these companies, when you get to the ones that are less than 5 million, less than 25 employees, they're at the spot where they know they need to recreate themselves or do some kind of a breakthrough, but they don't know how to do it. And that's where, being involved with CSIA adds a tremendous amount of value. And in particular for Interstates, it was in that where we sat and talked with other integrators that were in the same boat with us when we went to annual conferences, and relationships we built with those companies. So this is kind of where a lot of our companies are at. You can go to the next slide, Jose. So some growth initiatives that we plan to work on in 2018. We'll start crafting a little different strategy on how we aggressively pursue smaller SIs. We're not looking to neglect the larger SIs, but how do we really show value to that other group that today, and we heard this I think it was 2 years ago at the annual conference, what really is the value for us smaller SIs? And what we're really trying to focus on there a lot is around, how do we continue to get them engaged in best practices and building their business at a little different level. We're going to be looking to seek increased collaboration with other related automation associations. In fact, we're in conversations with others. We mentioned the robotics group. There's a robotics association that we're in conversations with, but lots of other groups that are out there that we think we can collaborate with and gain members that way as well. And then as we think about global, we've put a lot of efforts into growing globally, and we want to, I guess probably just a few years ago, deployed a plan related to Latin America, and today we have 46 Latam companies that are members of CSIA, and we're working on a growth plan right now in Europe to try to, how do we replicate what we've done in Latin America in Europe. And we've got quite a bit of interest from partners to help us with that. So it looks like that'll be a nice new focus for us over this next year. So Jose, I think you got maybe one more slide. Nope, that's it for me. Thank you, Jose.
And thank you very much, Jeff, for providing us this overview. So I will talk a little bit about the global initiatives to develop the topic that was touched upon by Jeff. So when we take a look at what we have done in Latin America, this initiative was started before I came on board. We have a regional director based out of Mexico, and she was in her position before I joined. And what we did is when I took the position was to refocus on Mexico. And this is because something that we take for granted when we go to our conference, which is all this collaboration spirit that we have with our members, it is not an automatic when you go somewhere else. I would even say outside of our forum. It's not just like a nationality thing. And so we had to build the community in Mexico. So we decided to hold quarterly events supported by our partners, and we have been delivering on those. We have changed the format a little bit. We've had roundtables. We have presentations by certified members from the region, and it has helped us, build the community. And what it has also forced us to do is to learn from this different market to allow us to craft a relevant value proposition. And not everybody from the Latin American group can afford or wants to spend time at our conference, and they still receive a lot of value from the other sources that we do, including the quarterly events. So today we have 46 Latam companies, which is a very good success story. And what you can see on the right-hand side are the events, a sample of the events that we have done. And on the lower side, you see a scheduled presentation at the Panduit Global System Integration Congress in Cancun. This is a major event. It will take place in February. And we have been invited to present, and I will be there, and I'll be sharing the word. And this is something that is an original strategy, or like a clever strategy, because we're leveraging all the other events that partners are doing in the region to get our word out. So let me just also talk about how it is that we are a community across the globe, independent of the country we're in. In September of 2017, we had a terrible month of September. We had 2, if not more, hurricanes going through the Gulf region, causing a lot of harm in Houston, but also in Puerto Rico and other Caribbean islands. And then, just by an unfortunate coincidence, we also had a disastrous earthquake in September in Mexico City. So what this shows is that those stories or those preparations from the best practices about how to prepare and deliver on a disaster recovery, it applies to all of us. So Russell Treat will be a moderator on a panel that we're going to have at the conference, and we're going to have members from Puerto Rico, Mexico, and Russell representing Houston talking about their experiences. It is interesting because Russell actually presented this several conferences ago, and I think this was related to Katrina, and it's just fact of life that that part of the world is prone to this type of accident. So he will be now leading a panel and sharing the experiences from different parts of the world on this terrible month of September. I will now talk a little bit about the European initiative. Of course, we do have European members from the very beginning. As a matter of fact, our treasurer is an Italian system integrator, and we have members in the Netherlands and other places. But we have never had a focused effort. So all the growth that we have had from members in Europe has been not driven by a special initiative. And we want to learn from what we did in Latin America and see what lessons we can take over to Europe. So I was in October of last year over in France and in Germany, and I spent a lot of time talking to vendors that you can see their logos on the site, not all of them, but you can see how this is a very automation-intensive region. Also some system integrators, some of our system integrators that are certified in Europe, I talked to them, and we're now trying to leverage a big trade show event to be included in there. So all of this, as you can imagine, is work in progress, a lot of work in progress, and I will be sharing as soon as we get a little more detail. But we're excited about the work that we're doing in this part of the world. So now I want to introduce John Weber from Software Toolbox, because he represents a member of our association who has identified very much with our global expansion plans. And so I want him to show us how, as members, we can take the initiative to the parts of the world that we are close to. So John?
Thanks, Jose. So yeah, I first started talking about CSIA during my visits to South Africa back in 2010 and evangelizing the value of the association, the sharing, and certification. This year at the Wonderware Southern Africa Annual System Integrators Conference, I had the honor to be joined by Alwyn Rautenbach of Eritron, who's a longtime system integrator and one of the well-known ones down in South Africa, to speak with other SI owners about CSIA. Alwyn had made the investment to join us in Florida for the 2017 conference, which gave him that perspective that those of us who have been going to the conference a long time understand from experience. So having done this before, I didn't know what to expect, but I was pleasantly surprised at the result. I think it really helped having an SI get up and speak with their peers about it. And we talked about the benefits of the organization, the conference, what's worked in Latin America, really trying to get folks to get on board with the idea of let's have a partner-sponsored meeting and do something. What was interesting, though, is when Alwyn spoke as a very respected member of the local SI community, there were two key themes that came across that Jose wanted me to share. One was that the value of best practices goes beyond our own certification and making your business better. Alwyn told his peers he wished he had the best practices when they did their ISO certifications, as they had to go make up their own best practices. And they've been through 2 ISO certifications, an original and their renewal. At the executive conference, he got to meet with some of the CSIA auditors, learn about them, talk with other members that have been audited, and learn how it works in practice, and they'll be going through the process. The other piece that some of us perhaps undervalue, but we all share the common fact, we're getting older, is succession planning. Alwyn felt the value of what he learned about that was one of the highlights of the conference. He's part of the first generation of automation integrators in South Africa, and he told everybody and told me, look, I thought I'd just do like my dad and everybody else here. I'm just going to work until I fall over at the end, and really hadn't thought there could be a practical way to exit the business. But he learned practical ways through that session at the conference, and that sentiment really resonated with some of his peers who'd been in the industry for 30, some of them 40 plus years, their whole career doing automation work. So we're hoping in 2018, the SI community in South Africa will be able to work to take the lessons we've learned in Latin America and apply them to start having some relevant get-togethers with the support of their major automation suppliers, Wonderware Southern Africa being the first. I'm going to be meeting with the folks from Wonderware Southern Africa in 2 weeks at another conference, and I'll be checking on their progress on getting their first partner-sponsored meeting set up. Thanks, Jose, for inviting me to share this story today.
And thank you, John, for being such a great ambassador to CSA in South Africa and Southern Africa. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure.
So I want to move now to Best Practices Revision 5. So as we all know, this Revision 5 will be available just right before the conference. So before I go in there, let me share this. One of our system integrators sent this to me, which is part of the water treatment plant specification for our recent bid. And on the yellow part, highlighted part, you can see how for this specific job, the control system needs to be designed and built by a certified member of CSIA, which is great, which is something that we have been working towards for a very long time. And those that are certified system integrator members can be very happy to see this type of recognition in the marketplace. This is our vision, and we have been working towards that. It has been slow to be recognized, but we're not giving up. We are leveraging social media and all the ways to get ourselves promoted to get that word across. But here's one thing that I will say, is don't wait until this becomes standard in all the bid specs for system integration work. You don't really have to wait, because the real reason for you to get this certified is because it will make your company a better company. And if you have not seen it, you can download this from the website. But this is a white paper that we put together, leveraging the work that an MBA intern did for us, taking a look at our data from certified system integrators, comparing that to an industry standard and showing the growth rates on the revenue side, but then also comparing numbers of certified versus non-certified system integrators at the level of KPIs that are relevant to the system integration companies. So don't take my word for it. Just download the document, take a read into this, and this should be the number one reason why you would want to pursue certification. Not because an end user is requiring it, but because this will make you a better company. And now talking about Revision 5. So we're scheduled to release this Revision 5 that has been in the works for a while. And those that have been part of the committee know all the work that goes into making this happen. And I want to thank one more time Eric Schaefer and the entire Best Practices Committee for all this work that has gone into it. The other part that you may or may not know is that when a new revision is done for the best practices, it is not just launched. It is launched through a very careful process. So that includes reaching out to some end users and getting their input. And it also involves some pilot audits using this Revision 5 on some members that had previously been certified. So to understand, if the little changes that have been introduced in the release are affecting the auditing process. So I had the pleasure of participating in this pilot audit that took place at one of our members. This is Interstate, and the pilot audit was conducted by Brian Millen from Exotech. It was a great experience participating in witnessing one of our certifications. I did that in August last year for the Revision 4 with the other auditing company, ASR. This one was a similar experience, and I think it's great, and it's always impressive to see all the work that is being done behind the scenes by system integrators driving their companies to higher standards. Let me provide you a few more updates. First, last quarter of 2017 was an intense quarter, as it always is for our association. And what you see on the picture to the left is the participation of Tony and Kristen from our staff at the Rockwell Automation Fair. So it was a very well-attended event. Us having a stand there allows us to interact with a lot of system integrators, end users, and other vendors and get our word out. I also was able to make a presentation at the Iconics Connected Intelligence for 2017. Also in November. This was in Providence, Rhode Island. And the picture that you see there, it's not me with one of these wearables. It was a very impressive demonstration of wearables integrated with a robot. It was really impressive, and I'm very glad to have been there and been able to take our word out. What you see on the next slide is something a little bit different. We view ourselves as driving thought leadership in our industry, and it's not just in the strictly defined industry of system integration. One of our members is Alliant Group. They provide R&D tax credit for system integrators, and they periodically organize this think tank series. And this particular one was on Technology, Economic, Legislative, and Policy Summit. It took place in Houston in November 2. And it involved other associations that have similar problems. You have heard this a lot of times, and one of the big problems that our automation space encounters is the unqualified labor force, to fill all the positions that they have available. This is not just at the engineering level, it is also at the technical level. And so we had a great conversation there. I'm showing here the events that will be coming in the first quarter. So Siemens has their Manufacturing in America event in March, It'll take place in Detroit, and similar to what we did for Rockwell, we will be there with a stand, and I will be making a presentation. Tony from our staff will be there as well. ARC, the advisory group, will host their 22nd annual ARC Industry Forum in Orlando in February, and I will be participating in one of their panels talking about IT and OT convergence. And then later in the year, in May, we will have a joint presentation, CSIA, with a CSIA member from Grantech, and it'll be Jeff Winter presenting and getting our word out. So keep tuned, stay tuned. This is what is coming in the next months. And now let me talk about the road to the 2018 Executive Conference. But specifically, before we get there, let me start by remembering the father of the PLC, Dick Morley. For those that were present at the 2016 Executive Conference in Puerto Rico, you will remember that Rick Caldwell made a presentation providing the Lifetime Achievement Award to Dick Morley for all the work that he did on the automation front. He was the inventor of the PLC and having come up with the company Modicon that we are all familiar with. So at that time, Dick's health was declining. He was already in a nursing home, and we met with him at a nursing home to provide the Lifetime Achievement Award. So this is the picture that you have on the bottom right. Rick Piero, also from CSIA, from the CSIA board, Rick Caldwell, we were there, along with Chuck Schellberg, who was programmer at the early days, Modicon, and who worked very closely with Dick Morley. There are a lot of memories attached, and there are a lot of curated videos on our website that we invite you to visit. But we also want to remind you that Dick Morley is being honored through contributions for a fund. There is one by ISA. ISA is providing an initial $50,000 and matching up to another $50,000 if you want to go that way. You don't have to be a member to do that. And then there's this other way, which is GoFundMe. The idea is to create this scholarship fund to keep the memory of Dick Morley alive. So I'm now going to move into the 2018 Executive Conference. And here are the two topics that we're going to be placing a lot of emphasis on. One is innovation, and the other one is sound business practices. So this is a little bit of like the continuation of what we started in Fort Lauderdale, where we had transformative business models, which is part of the innovation, and the best practices as the key focus area. So we will continue, but innovation will be this time high on the list. So I want to use this platform to invite all of you to get inspired by the destination of San Francisco, which has been such an innovation hotbed. We will have several presenters at our conference that will be addressing the topic of innovation. So you'll have people from Cisco, Google, Uptake, which is an upstart company on asset management out of Chicago, and our initial speaker, keynote speaker, will be addressing the topic of innovation. And in case this is not enough motivation for you to get into the innovation topic, I'll just provide you with my tip, which is during this Christmas holiday, I was able to finally read the book, The Biography of Steve Jobs. It is a great piece because the history is really a history that we lived through with the advent of the personal computer and all the things related to it. I think you'll find this fascinating, and hopefully it'll get you motivated for the conference. So with that being said, we're getting close to the end of our webcast. If there are some questions that we can quickly address, we will go to them. Otherwise, and I don't see any questions in here. So I don't want to abuse your time. This is meant to be an update of what we have been doing and what we're about to do within our association. I want to thank you very much for taking your time. This will be recorded and put in our archives for all those that they were not able to attend and that we want to share this with. So thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you very much, John, for sharing and participating in this webcast. And thank you, everybody, for having joined today. Have a good day.
Thank you, Jose.